Friends, it's Laurel. Thanks again for joining my vlog. If you're new to this video series, it's basically a documentation of my journey as I go through my manifestation process, which is a circuitous journey and not linear in any means. And if you've been following me, this is the first video I've done in about 2 months. I'm coming up from a hiatus and it was unplanned. I started off my journey in the end of 2019, getting into Dr. Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you're not familiar with him. I started reading his books and I started doing his meditations off and on. And then in May of last year, I started doing his meditations daily. So I would get up at 4 a.m. and I would do the meditations in the morning. And anybody new to Dr. Dispenza's work, it's based on the idea that you do these meditations in the morning and you kind of bring yourself into a subconscious like alpha or theta brainwave level where you can kind of reprogram your subconscious, and then you can go into the quantum field where you sort of reprogram and redefine your reality, and you call the things to your life that you want, the kind of changes you want to see. Sorry, I have lots of chickens out here right now, so it's kind of distracting. But so I did that work for about 8 months straight. Every day I'd get up in the morning and do it, and I would watch videos, and I was and have been very inspired by it. But I sort of became disillusioned in January because it just felt so unattainable for me. His conferences in particular are expensive, and they are fairly well out of my means, and I don't think it's something that I should or could pay for anytime soon given my current financial situation. So it just kind of seemed out of reach, and I also felt like a lot of the people that were following his work were looking for healings, and I'm specifically looking for manifestation. So I'm looking for financial things to change in my life, for career opportunities to come up. So I kind of found that there was sort of a mismatch on the target audience and the target of what people were wanting. And I realized that manifesting healing is in more or less the same thing as manifesting a new career or financial change or financial healing, as I would put it. But I still found that there was like sort of a mismatch of peers. I didn't find that there were a lot of peers that were like in my age or my financial situation in his audience. So I think I naturally sort of had a falling off in January, and it wasn't that I still subscribe to a lot of what Dr. Dispenza teaches. I think his books are phenomenal. I recommend reading them. They are wonderful. But I kind of fell back naturally in January and just had a slump. I just had a break. I just stepped back and took a break, and I was even eating poorly. I was just like everything. I was just like, I need to take a break. I was just kind of felt tired from the year. We were going into the new year. There were a lot of changes, and I just took a break intuitively, my body, and I needed that. So I let myself have it. And I was actually trying to get back into it, I think in late January or early February. And I was listening to a podcast, and a podcast is kind of what keeps me going, or watching testimonial videos that kind of keeps me going with the work, and it keeps me inspired. And so I turned on a podcast with a Dr. Dispenza interview. I was like, well, let me hear some more interviews. And what I found is like his interviews, in my opinion, tend to be sort of, and I think his goal is he's trying to call in more people that are new to his work. So his interviews tend to be sort of an hour of sort of like the same rehash of what he teaches in his books and his workshops. So they're not really like interviews about his personal life or what I would call like new information that you don't encounter if you already follow him. So I kind of like listened to it. I was like, okay. But the really cool thing that was expansive for me is the interview he conducted was on a podcast called Expanded by Lacy Phillips. Sorry. So Lacy Phillips is a younger person. She's a younger manifester, and she has natural talents with energetics and manifesting. She has a pretty phenomenal ability to manifest. She kind of comes from sort of not the ideal family upbringing. She doesn't come from money, and she sort of had to forge her own way out in LA, and she's grown this company where she helps people learn how to manifest. And what I like about her approach, and I learned in this interview, I was like, wow, she's amazing. She's very wise. She teaches a lot of great things. I like that her approach isn't really based on things that are a little more nebulous and hard to maintain. Because some of the new age people, including sometimes Dr. Dispenza, will say like you have to feel greater than your circumstances, and it's kind of feeling based. And I find that really, really difficult to do, like to feel abundant when you're literally on the verge of not being able to buy groceries. I think that's really difficult to do, and I'm not there yet. I'm not saying that's the wrong teaching, it just doesn't speak to me, and I haven't learned that yet. And the thing I like about Lacy's approach is Lacy is more about like hands-on, sort of take a step back and reprogram subconscious. So she says it's not really necessarily like manifesting isn't about going around all the time thinking positive emotions. It's not about never feeling angry. It's not about never feeling, resentful for maybe deficiencies that you had growing up as a child or things that you weren't provided. Or, in my case, I've had a lot of like debt that I had to take on for a shot at a good life. And I feel a lot of resentment about that, and it's been a big challenge in my life. And I used to kind of feel like guilty about having those feelings. And I like it that in the 2B Magnetic work, that's Lacy Phillips' company, 2B Magnetic, it's not really about like shedding those feelings. It's about acknowledging them and then going in and you do what's called a daily reprogramming exercise or a deep imagining. And these are basically exercises where you kind of go in, and the deep imaginings in particular, you go into a hypnotic alpha wave state, similar to Dr. Dispenza's teachings, but they're a little bit briefer. You can do them at any time during the day, and it's like a 15-minute to 20-minute sort of hypnotic state where you reprogram facets of your childhood that were not ideal to you living your authentic code. So what she calls authentic code is like what you were truly meant to be. And a perfect example of this would be, I'm going to take this inside because it's really loud out here. So a perfect example, and sort of like the subconscious reconditioning that you have to do, would be that say that you wanted to be a writer and you approached your family as a child and you said, hey, I want to be a writer, this is what I want to do. And that was like your authentic code. That was what your soul came to the earth to do, was to be a writer. And your family immediately said, no, you can't be a writer, you have to be an attorney. I was an attorney, your grandpa's an attorney, you have to be an attorney, writers are broke. And Dr. Dispenza reinforces this too with sort of like the psychological development research that he presents. But if you hear that as like a 7-year-old child, you're going to internalize that and you're going to believe it deep down at a subconscious level. So even if you go out into the real world and you go to law school, this actually happened to somebody in Lacy's program, and you quit law school or you quit your law profession, you say, I'm doing it, I'm going to be a writer, and you try it and you don't succeed, a lot of that is attributed to the fact that deep down, subconsciously, you believe that you won't succeed. You believe that writers are poor. In my case, my big challenge is worthiness issues for various circumstances growing up in my childhood. I didn't have as much as like my peers, and I think I sort of absorbed that into worthiness issues. So I believe that I'm not worth, a successful, financially abundant, luxurious lifestyle. I really want to travel. I really want to have nicer things. I kind of want to have an upgrade. And I believe that I'm not worth that at a deep down level, no matter how hard I struggle. And I've worked my butt off in school. I've worked my butt off, as a consultant, and it always seems that I attract financial struggles and difficulty to my life. And so what I'm working on right now, and I've been working on since I started Dr. Dispenza's work too, is reprogramming worthiness and financial abundance. And I find that Lacy Phillips' work, for me at least, has been very helpful because you do a lot of journaling, you do a lot of, it's almost like you become your own counselor. So you ask yourself these tough questions. Well, why do I feel that way? What happened in childhood? All the way down to like when you were born, when you came to the planet. You ask yourself, what circumstances cause this in me, and how can I reprogram them to not feel this way? So if you had a particularly traumatic experience in your early childhood that maybe made you have issues with being successful or an overachiever or something like that, you can reprogram those. So you can actually, during the deep imaginings, close your eyes and she has you reparent yourself and re-nurture yourself in a way that you get those things that you needed. So For me, I'm pretty new in the work. I've been doing that work for about a month now, and it's challenging. I mean, if you're like me and you're a crier, you're going to cry a lot. It's almost like going to a psychologist and doing these like deep sessions, but it's also very healing. You get to face and to tackle some things that you normally wouldn't even approach or tackle or face. And sometimes in the deep imagining exercises, just stuff comes up, like memories come up that you had no idea were even a thing. So I'm finding that it's being, very healing for me, and it's kind of catapulted me back into the work because I felt like for whatever reason, I'm having an energetic block doing Dr. Dispenza's meditations. I'm not there right now. They don't jive, they don't align. And I'm finding that this particular work is really helpful for, it just flows for me. So if anybody else if you're doing Dr. Dispenza's work and it's working for you, by all means, keep doing the work, because that's what every one of his students says. They say keep going. But if you're finding, like me, that you are finding a block, the To Be Magnetic program by Lacy Phillips is very affordable. It might be a better venue for you, and it might flow back and forth. There may be a time that you run through that program and you go back to Dr. Dispenza's, or you go to one of his conferences. But I guess this video for me is just, again, my biggest goal is to be candid as I go through my journey of manifestation and changing my situation. And I just want to post this kind of to attest to the fact that it's not always a linear journey. For some people it is. Some people knock it out of the park and boom, they're straight there. But for me, it's very like family circus. It's very like going around in circles and figuring it out, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And for me, this is where I've landed right now. So I always appreciate you guys joining. I appreciate your interest. And I love it when you comment on the video. Please comment below. Let me know what you think and let me know how your journey has gone. And also feel free to subscribe. I'm going to try to post more videos and to have more content. But first and foremost, I want my videos to be worthwhile. So I'm not going to post just for the sake of posting, but mostly just post to give a candid sort of plot of how my journey is going so far. So as always, thanks for following and hope to hear from you soon.